Stop whatever you're doing for the next few minutes and really hear this. Most people will go to their graves having never lived a single day that was truly their own. If you're here at 2 a.m., scrolling, second-guessing every choice, consider this your interruption, because what you decide after this could redraw the rest of your life. Picture the bus ride, the morning commute, the open-plan office. Look around. Most people aren't living. They're performing. They wake up to an alarm someone else set. They follow rules someone else wrote. They fall asleep knowing they spent another 24 hours being the version of themselves that keeps other people comfortable. If that hits a nerve, good. It means you're starting to see the bars of the cage. There's a reason you feel that subtle misery after doing everything right. The script you were handed, school, grades, safe job, mortgage, polite smiles, quiet retirement, wasn't designed to make you powerful. It was designed to make you predictable. It's a mass-produced life, clean, efficient, controlled. You're told you have choices, but they're just different brands of the same product. New phone, same trap. New title, same leash. And here's the part nobody told you. 500 years ago, a Florentine civil servant mapped the escape route. Niccolo Machiavelli wasn't writing for corporate climbers or office politics. He was writing for people who wanted sovereignty, people ready to seize a throne that exists inside their own life. Not a palace, not a crown. Authority over your time, over your decisions, over the frame in which other people meet you. If that sounds dramatic, it's because your life has been edited for safety. Think about the conditioning. School taught you to ask permission to speak. Work rewards team players who never disturb the peace. Social circles police difference with gossip and subtle disapproval. We confuse fitting in with belonging, approval with respect, being liked with being valued. We treat the symptoms, more apps, more planners, more podcasts, while never questioning the machinery that keeps us docile. Let's call the illusion by its name. The myth of conformity. You were told it leads to happiness. What it really produces is numbness. It gives you belonging, but at the cost of self-abandonment. It defines success for you, then shames you for not wanting it enough. You know this in your bones. The boredom you feel isn't laziness. It's a healthy mind staring at a life it didn't choose. So let's pry open the frame. Ask yourself, out loud, how many of my daily decisions are actually mine? The time you wake up, yours or your boss's? The clothes you wear, yours or the dress code you internalized? The entertainment you choose, yours or the algorithms? Even your dreams, are they true desires or socially acceptable aspirations dressed as authenticity? Most people would rather be wrong with the crowd than right by themselves. That's why independence feels dangerous. Not because you'll fail, but because you'll stand out. Machiavelli understood the psychology of the room. People don't organize around truth. They organize around signals. Confidence beats competence. Clarity beats complexity. Appearance beats essence. Unless you learn to control the appearance. You don't need to burn bridges or move to the mountains. Strategic independence is not isolation, it's control. It's knowing your own judgment so thoroughly that you can enter any room without bending to it. It's being socially fluent while privately sovereign. It's engaging by choice, not by dependence. Here's the first cut. Stop outsourcing your definition of a good life. The culture hands you a checklist. You hand it back. You don't have to reject every item, family, work, community, but you decide the terms. That requires ruthless honesty. What do you actually want? Not what looks admirable. Not what would finally make your parents exhale. Not what earns you polite applause from people you don't even respect. What wakes you up? What pulls you forward without the whip of fear or the bait of approval? If you can't answer yet, that's normal. You've been trained out of your own appetite. So, start small. Notice what drains you. Notice what gives you voltage. The quickest way to find your path isn't to think, it's to feel your energy rise or fall around specific actions and people. Your body is honest long before your mind catches up. Second cut, protect your inputs. Everyone's broadcasting their opinions, and most of them are recycling someone else's. Build your own information stack. Read primary sources. Follow people who disagree with each other. Seek data before you seek takes. When you stop letting the loudest voice set your priorities, you stop living as a reaction. Third cut, create a private metric of success. The world uses money, titles, and follower counts because they're easy to measure. You choose something harder to fake. Sovereignty over your calendar, creative throughput, depth of relationships, the ratio of obligations you accepted versus ones you set. Track it weekly. What you measure, you begin to command. And then there's the fear. What if I disappoint people? You will. That's the price of replacing approval with respect. What if I fail? You will. On purpose. That's called learning outside the syllabus. What if I end up alone? You won't. Authenticity repels the wrong crowd and magnetizes the right one. But there is a tunnel. You walk through it alone. That's how you stop needing permission. Understand this. The system doesn't need your talent. It needs your compliance. When you stop giving it the second, you can finally leverage the first. That's when opportunities appear, not because you chased them, but because you became a person with gravity. People start to read you differently, not as nice, but as necessary. Not as available, but as intentional. That shift begins the moment you reclaim 1 square inch of your day and defend it like a border. Before we go further, anchor the mindset that makes everything else possible. Write it somewhere or speak it right now. I choose my path. Not because it's trendy, not because you're angry, because you're done being piloted by inertia. Your throne isn't in some distant future. It appears the moment you stop living by default. Next, we get practical. How to become truly self-reliant in a hyper-connected world without turning into a hermit. How to collaborate without surrendering your judgment, and how to speak in rooms where everyone else is nodding at the wrong idea, and have them listen. But first, breathe. You don't need permission to begin. You've already started. Let's clear up a dangerous misconception. Choosing your own path doesn't mean disappearing into the woods, cutting off friends, or swearing off society. That's not independence. That's exile. What Machiavelli understood is that true strength comes from self-reliance, but not in the shallow sense of, I don't need anyone. It's the deeper mastery of being able to stand firm in any room. Because your foundation isn't built on other people's approval. Think about it this way. When you rely on others for validation, you become their subject. When you rely on yourself for clarity, you become their equal. Or their superior. That's the pivot. Self-reliance doesn't mean rejecting connection. It means you enter connection from a position of abundance, not need. You stop chasing attention and start commanding it. You stop begging for a seat at the table and start making the table stronger just by sitting there. Imagine you're in a business meeting. The group is nodding along to a terrible idea. One option is to play along because that's team spirit. Another option is to oppose loudly and risk being labeled difficult. Both responses make you a puppet pulled by the crowd's strings. But if you've already done the work, your own analysis, your own preparation, your own confidence, then when you finally speak, you cut through the noise. Not because you yelled louder, but because your conviction rests on something the others don't have: independence of thought. That's the essence of power. When you no longer need agreement to validate your idea, agreement often follows anyway. But let's break this down into concrete practices. What does self-reliance actually look like in daily life? First, control your inputs. Stop depending on the same news, the same feeds, the same recycled wisdom that everyone else gorges on. Curate your sources. Read across niches, across perspectives. Think like a fox, alert to traps, skeptical of easy answers. If your thinking pipeline looks identical to the crowd's, don't be surprised when your conclusions do too. Second, design your own decision-making criteria. Most people choose based on what others will think, what feels safest, or what seems realistic. That's not strategy. That's outsourcing your sovereignty. Create your own framework. What do you actually value most? Freedom of time? Intellectual challenge? Impact? Align your decisions with those values, and you'll stop being seduced by opportunities that aren't really opportunities at all. Third, financial independence. You cannot live authentically if you're chained by money in ways that force you into submission. This doesn't mean you need millions. It means you build enough security that you can walk away from toxic deals, dishonest bosses, or situations that demand your soul as payment. Even a modest buffer of savings or side income can transform you from desperate to discerning. Fourth, emotional autonomy. Most people live like emotional addicts, needing constant reassurance that they're good enough. The self-reliant person doesn't need to be told who they are every day. They know. They ground themselves not in applause, but in self-respect. That's why rejection bounces off them. When your core validation comes from within, nobody else can revoke it. Fifth, intellectual curiosity. Stop parroting the group. Start forming your own perspective. Read deeply, question ruthlessly, connect dots across disciplines. Machiavelli once wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few know what you really are." Self-reliance is about knowing yourself so thoroughly that you never need to pretend. That authenticity is magnetic. The few who matter recognize it instantly, and the many who don't matter respect it even if they can't name why. Here's the paradox. When you stop trying to belong, you attract belonging. When you stop trying to impress, you impress. When you stop trying to sell yourself, your value sells itself. Self-reliance is the ultimate amplifier of authentic connection. Look at history's great entrepreneurs, leaders, and creators. They didn't win by following trends. They built trends. Steve Jobs didn't ask people what phone they wanted. He built something they didn't even know to ask for. Oprah didn't mimic the standard TV host script. She broke it and created her own genre. These people weren't detached from society. They were more deeply engaged with it than anyone else. But they engaged as originators, not imitators. And here's the secret nobody admits. The more independent you become, the more others want to depend on you. That's what makes you a leader. When everyone else is scanning the room for consensus, your clear voice becomes the anchor. When everyone else is paralyzed by doubt, your decisiveness becomes magnetic. When you stand comfortably alone, people follow you without you having to ask. Now, apply this to negotiation. When you don't need the deal, you get the best deal. When you don't crave approval, people hand it to you. When you're ready to walk away, others rush to keep you. Why? Because true leverage belongs to the person with the fewest dependencies. That's what self-reliance really is, leverage. But don't confuse this with manipulation. The goal isn't to game people into compliance. The goal is to know your worth so clearly that the world adjusts around you instead of you bending to it. The self-reliant don't network in the traditional sense. They attract allies. They don't chase recognition. They create work that demands it. They don't argue about their value. They demonstrate it by existing. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's not one big declaration, it's 100 small choices. Choosing your own judgment over popular opinion. Saying no to good so you can say yes to great. Letting some people be disappointed so you can live aligned. Choosing the discomfort of independence over the comfort of conformity. So, here's your next anchor point. Say it, write it, claim it. I attract alignment. Because when you stand in self-reliance, you don't chase life. Life starts chasing you. Next, we step into the terrain most people never dare to enter. Risk. Why the biggest gamble is avoiding all gambles, and how calculated risk becomes the weapon that forges real power. Let's talk about the word most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Risk. Society conditions you to believe the safest path is the smartest one. But here's the truth that Machiavelli would whisper in your ear. The greatest danger is not risk itself. It's never risking anything at all. Because the moment you dedicate your life to avoiding risk, you've already chosen mediocrity. Think about history. Every meaningful breakthrough, every invention, every revolution, every leap forward came because someone was willing to step into the unknown. Comfort zones have never produced greatness. They only produce repetition. And yet most people cling to the illusion of safety, steady jobs, predictable routines, scripted futures, while wondering why they feel so restless and empty inside. Here's the problem. When you avoid risk, you avoid responsibility. It's easier to blame the system or bad luck than to own your choices. Playing safe lets you tell yourself, I had no choice. But when you step into risk, even a calculated one, you can't hide. You're the author now. The outcome, win or lose, is yours. And that terrifies people more than failure. Machiavelli knew this well. He once wrote, "Since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved." What he meant wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. People respect decisiveness. They respect those willing to act, even when the outcome is uncertain. Being agreeable may earn you affection, but being decisive earns you influence. And in the real world, influence is worth far more. But don't confuse risk with recklessness. Reckless people jump without looking. Calculated risk-takers study the terrain. They anticipate obstacles, prepare contingencies, and still make the bold move. That's the difference. The fool risks everything blindly. The strategist risks strategically. So, let's get practical. How do you take calculated risks without falling into chaos? Step 1. Define exactly what you want. Vague dreams lead to vague results. If your vision is foggy, your risk will be reckless. Be specific. Do you want financial freedom? A creative career? Independence from a toxic system? Spell it out and be honest about why it matters. That clarity becomes your compass. Step 2. Name the risks. Most fear dissolves the moment you look it in the eye. Write down the worst-case scenarios. Ask yourself, what is the actual probability of this happening? You'll often realize your fear is based more on imagination than reality. Step 3. Build contingencies. Plan B doesn't mean you expect to fail. It means you expect reality to test you. If one door shuts, you know the second one you'll knock on. That preparedness transforms fear into confidence. Step 4. Start small. You don't have to leap off a cliff. You can build your tolerance for risk the way you build a muscle gradually. Each small risk you take, Launching that side project, having that difficult conversation, making that small investment builds confidence for bigger moves later. Step 5. Set a timeline and metrics. Risk without deadlines is just daydreaming. Decide how long you'll give your plan before reassessing. Decide how you'll measure progress. This keeps you from quitting too soon or clinging too long to something that isn't working. And finally, Step 6. Act. Because too many people get stuck in analysis. They convince themselves they're just preparing when really they're procrastinating. You will never have perfect information. The timing will never be flawless. Waiting for certainty is the same as waiting forever. Ask yourself honestly, what's the worst that could happen if you actually pursued your real dream? Most of the time, the nightmare scenarios are survivable. Meanwhile, what's the worst that could happen if you don't? That's the question that should keep you awake at night, because the slow, silent death of living someone else's life is far more terrifying than failure. Fear of financial ruin? You're already trapped in a system that doesn't reward your true value. Fear of rejection? You're already surrounded by people who don't see the real you. Fear of failure? You're already failing at living up to your potential by never trying. This is the cold Machiavellian principle of risk. Failure isn't your enemy. Inaction is. Every setback is data. Every mistake is education. Every scar is proof that you dared while others stayed frozen. The person who never fails is the person who never tried, and the person who never tries is already dead long before the grave. Understand this. Uncertainty isn't the problem. Complacency is. The unknown isn't the threat. The known, the predictable boredom of a safe, small life, that's what should terrify you. So anchor this truth. Write it, claim it. I embrace uncertainty. Because the moment you do, you're freer than 99% of people you know. In the next step, we'll go even deeper. Once you've accepted risk, how do you carve your own uncharted course? A path so personal and authentic that the world has no choice but to notice? That's where the lion and the fox inside you must finally wake up. Here's the truth most people will never face. Building your own path isn't about throwing away everything society offers. It's about ruthless choice. You take what serves your vision, and you discard what doesn't. But to do that, you need one thing most people never develop: brutal honesty. Ask yourself, what do you actually want? Not what sounds noble. Not what would silence your parents' doubts. Not what earns applause in your social circle. Strip all that away. If nobody was watching, if failure wasn't even possible, what would you chase? That's the beginning of your uncharted course. The challenge is that most people can't even answer this. Why? Because they've been conditioned for so long to want what they're told to want, that their real desires are buried under years of programming. Sometimes you need to rewind back to childhood memories to find what lit you up before the world told you to be practical. Your authentic vision isn't invented, it's remembered. But remember this, your path will evolve. It's not a single destination, it's a compass. Machiavelli wrote, "The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves." In other words, you need both. The fox's cunning to spot danger, and the lion's courage to confront it. Building your own life requires the same mix: flexibility with direction and ferocity with execution. So let's map out how to actually chart your course. Step 1. Conduct a personal audit. Take a hard look at your current life. What parts align with who you really are? What parts are dead weight, kept alive by fear, habit, or obligation? Write it down. Be ruthless. You can't steer anywhere new if you're pretending you're fine where you are. Step 2. Examine your daily energy. Every day is a balance sheet of energy. What tasks energize you? What drains you? How much of your time goes into what actually matters versus what you tolerate out of obligation? Track it for a week. You'll be shocked at how little of your life is spent on what you truly value. Step 3. Identify your unique triangle of strengths, interests, and values. Strengths. Not just technical skills, but personality traits, talents, the way your brain works. Interests. Not just hobbies, but the subjects you can't stop thinking about. Values. Not abstract slogans, but the principles you'd sacrifice for. Your path should sit at the intersection of these three. That's where authenticity turns into leverage. Step 4. Take consistent, small steps. Don't wait for some Hollywood-style leap. Start now. Spend 30 minutes a day on something that reflects your vision. Launch a side project. Write one page. Have one authentic conversation. The world changes when daily action compounds. One page a day becomes a book. One step at a time becomes an empire. Step 5. Define your own success metrics. Society uses money, status, and recognition. Those aren't wrong, but they aren't enough. What's your definition? Maybe it's control of your time. Maybe it's impact. Maybe it's the ratio of energized days to drained ones. Write your metrics. Otherwise, you'll keep chasing goals that leave you empty even when you hit them. Step 6. Build internal feedback loops. Stop relying on likes, promotions, or applause. They can be useful, but they don't measure authenticity. Instead, ask yourself, am I living closer to my values? Am I progressing toward my vision? Am I energized more often than drained? These are your compass checks. Now, prepare for resistance. Because once you start charting your own course, you will threaten people. Family may guilt you, friends may doubt you, colleagues may resent you. Don't take it personally. Their discomfort isn't about you. It's about them seeing in you the courage they haven't mustered. Understand this. The opinions of those who want you to stay small come from their limitations, not your potential. Machiavelli would say, expect resistance. Anticipate it. Don't fight every critic. Outlast them. But don't try to do it all alone either. Find allies. Seek out mentors, communities, people who understand what it means to live authentically. They may not be the people you grew up with. Often, they aren't. That's okay. Every great leader has had to find or build their circle. Above all, trust your instincts. You have access to data no one else does. Your own internal signals. Instincts aren't random feelings. They're the compressed wisdom of your experiences, observations, and subconscious analysis. If something feels wrong, pay attention. If something feels alive, follow it. Rational analysis is slow. Your instincts are lightning. Anchor this now. Write it, say it. I trust myself. Because your instincts are your hidden weapon in a world where most people are too numbed out to feel anything at all. We've now exposed the lie of conformity, uncovered the secret of self-reliance, and shown how calculated risk becomes the forge of real strength. You've seen how to design your own path in practical terms. But none of this matters without one final element: action. The will to begin. The courage to move, even while afraid. That's where everything you've learned turns into reality. And that's where we go next. The call to claim your throne, not in some distant future, but right here, right now. We've walked through the illusions of conformity, the strength of self-reliance, the necessity of risk, and the art of charting your own course. But none of this has meaning if it stays in your head. The most dangerous lie is that thinking about it is the same as doing it. It isn't. Information without action is just another prison, one with nicer walls. The truth is this: your throne already exists. Not in some castle, not in some far-off future, not in the approval of others. It exists the moment you decide to claim it. Right now, in this exact second. Think about it. Every day you hesitate is another day living someone else's script. Every excuse you make is another brick in the walls that keep you stuck. Every time you choose safety over authenticity, you're casting a vote against your own greatness, and those votes add up. That's how a lifetime of compromise is built, one small surrender at a time. But here's the paradox. You don't need to be ready to begin. You don't need all the answers. You don't need anyone's permission. You need only one thing: the will to start. Because courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is the act of moving forward even while fear rides shotgun. So let's make this simple. What's one small action you can take today to tilt the scale toward your authentic vision? Send the email. Make the call. Write the first page. Have the difficult conversation. Take the first step. It doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be real. History's greatest contributions came from people who refused to wait for permission. They didn't accept the world as it was handed to them. They created their own. They stood alone until others began to gather. They trusted themselves when nobody else did. And eventually, the world had no choice but to recognize them. That's the secret of leadership. Not waiting for the crowd, but daring to walk ahead of it. Not asking to be chosen, but choosing yourself. Not seeking a throne from others, but building one where you stand. So here's your call to action. Stop waiting. Stop delaying. Stop playing small in a world that desperately needs you at full power. The throne isn't given, it's seized. And the moment you step into it, you stop being a follower of life and start being its author. Anchor this now. Drop it in the comments. Write it somewhere you'll see every day. My time is now, because it is. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now. The choice is in front of you. To keep walking the path designed for your obedience, or to carve your own path designed for your sovereignty. To keep waiting for permission, or to finally crown yourself. To live as a shadow, or to rise as the architect of your own life. The throne is waiting. The only question left is, will you claim it? And here's the final truth you must hold on to. The world doesn't need another person who drifts quietly through life, ticking boxes on someone else's checklist. The world doesn't need another obedient worker, another polite dreamer, another soul that settles for mediocrity. What the world does need, what it has always needed, is someone willing to wake up, break the illusion, and step into their own sovereignty. That someone is you. Machiavelli's lesson is not that power is handed to the chosen few. It's that power belongs to those bold enough to claim it. When you seize your throne, you do more than change your own destiny. You show others it's possible. You become the proof that a different kind of life can be lived. And when that moment comes, when you finally crown yourself, the world will no longer ignore you. It will follow.